All right, welcome everyone to our feedback session on Hannover Fair 2022. We wanted to highlight to you 10 of our takeaways from attending the fair. Mohammed, Shamila, Fernando, and Philip, who are on the call with me, all attended with me the Hannover Fair, plus a few others that aren't on this call. And we wanted to highlight here what we think were some of the takeaways that we had from the fair. So I'll start and I'll hand over to the other guys. Point number one for me would be that it's really become a lot more about the software than about the hardware. And what I mean when I say that is that even the companies that traditionally were really big on hardware, like Schneider Electric, highlighted software in their case, Plant Advisor, autonomous production advisor, a lot of software tools. Siemens had the entire booth set up in a way that hardware played no role at the booth. There was no hardware at the booth, actually. Quite interesting, very solution oriented. And then Rockwell Automation, for example, highlighted 5 of their key innovation areas. None of them had to do with hardware. So that was, you really see how software is coming in. At the same time, you still have some new manufacturing control paradigms that are gaining speed. What do I mean with that? I mean things like distributed control. So we've learned that controllers are becoming smaller and in a more distributed fashion. Beckhoff was highlighting that. The form factors of these controllers coming down. So that's kind of one area. Another area is that we're seeing wireless control. So like not talking 5G, I'm talking about like wireless IO protocols 10 meters away from the between wherever you're controlling something and wherever the router is, the controller. You don't need a cable for that. A couple of companies like Kunbus were showing that. And then the other thing that you're seeing is software-based control. There were a few showcases of that. Schneider Electric was one. Software-defined automation, so together with AWS was another highlight there, without getting too much in depth. But those things were really, for me, the highlights. And I'll hand it over to Shamila to see what her highlights were.
Thanks, Kunal. My top takeaway was on robots. There were a lot of robots that we saw that were smaller and kind of mounted on AGVs. So many companies like Escava, Pills and robots, they were showcasing many features and across all these robots. Festo was also showcasing a number of robotic cells featuring various bionics-based robots, which was supposed to be like flying octopuses and birds. These are the main highlights of the robotic space from in the Hannover Messe. The next takeaway was more on private 5G. Private 5G was there at a large scale when compared to previous Hannover Messes. Many companies like Nokia, Ericsson, Qualcomm, Siemens, all of them had their private 5G networks operating within their booths. For example, Qualcomm partnered with Bosch Rexroth to pilot a 5G-based quality inspection system at their factory. Smart Factory KL booth, they also had another pilot showcase where they were attempting to operate safety operations within 5G. So from the previous years, where the use cases of private 5G were quite unclear, the industry has progressed a lot with partnerships, and upcoming releases 16 and 17 will kind of propel the industry forward with respect to private 5G. Handing over to Fernando for his top takeaways.
Thank you, Shamila. So yeah, so the first takeaway is related to what Nut mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. Basically, what we saw is that everyone is moving to solutions. So in contrast to previous year, we observed that most of the companies were rarely advertising individual software tools or individual building blocks for the digitalizations. So most of them were advertising solutions, and 2 key examples for this trend were given by Siemens and Microsoft. We observed that they were grouping their individual offerings around key themes or outcomes like efficiency and quality, for example. The next takeaway from me was the fact that low code is everywhere. Basically, it seems like there is now low-code software version for every piece of software. So this low-code basically were made of mostly drag-and-drop software builders and simplified programming interfaces. And the companies showcasing this included Siemens with their Mindex platform, also Telit and Sign Machine for the respective IoT platform, and in particular also Cognite and Hexagon for their tube inspection software that they branded by Bending Studio XT. So those were basically my two takeaways. Back now to Phil.
Thank you very much, Fernando. So my first main takeaway is that the push to the cloud continues, but key systems stay on premises. So one indication for that is that AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft had by far, or among the biggest crowds in the whole Hannover Messe, and not only for the after-show parties, but also throughout the whole day. And this is just one indication to see how those hyperscalers and the cloud itself has become a centerpiece and maybe an important part for the manufacturing ecosystem. However, we also talked to some integrators, for example, one Aveva integrator who told us that nearly all of the software that they sell is deployed either on premises or on private cloud solution, at least in Germany. My second takeaway would be that startups and cloud partnerships have become a winning combination. Startups used to have a separate hall a few years back at Hannover Messe. However, this has totally changed. We did the math and took a look at the booth of Microsoft and AWS. 30% of the 16 Microsoft partners who exhibited at the fair, and 50% of the 22 AWS partners were founded in the last 15 years, so we would call them probably startups. And many other young and upcoming companies, so startups, had their booths kind of around those hyperscalers. And that seems to be a combination we have to look for in the coming years. Hassan, take it away.
Thank you, Phil. So one of the key takeaways for me was that sustainability was a main point of focus for most of the exhibitors. In stark contrast to what we saw last year at the Hannover Fair, sustainability topics were much more emphasized this time. So companies like Unified Twin, for example, showcased AI-driven intelligent industrial app suite focusing on sustainability, smart energy, remote monitoring. Other companies like Yaskawa also showcased its sustainability projects under the slogan Smart Products for Sustainable Production. So you see there was a lot of emphasis on this topic. The second key takeaway for me from the Hannover Fair was the push for digital twin maturity. Now that has reached a significant level of importance. So hyperscalers like AWS and Microsoft, for example, previewed their new digital twin offerings, and Google as well. So Google focused on supply chain digital twin and the digital twin for manufacturing. So all the hyperscalers showcased what they had to offer related to digital twins. Other companies, including Autodesk, told us that they were trying to avoid the term digital twin because it right now it appears like a buzzword to most of its customers. So what we figured out is that most of these digital twin vendors are still trying to educate their customers on how this product or this service can add value to them. But it will certainly take some time before it reaches the level of maturity, or we see an increased level of adoption amongst these customers.
Very good. Thank you very much for being part of this discussion. These were 10 takeaways. We have a lot more coming as we are doing a big write-up of the fair, which is out in about a week or roughly around that time. We will include a lot of pictures and other takeaways, including very detailed examples. Let's stay in touch and hope to see you at next year's Hannover Fair in case you couldn't make it this time. Bye.
Bye.